Hello, and welcome to the Divorced Dadvocate, divorce support for dads, where we help dads create a healthy and less traumatic divorce. My name is Jude Sandoval, and I'm your host. I created this podcast and the Divorced Advocate community as a result of my own high conflict divorce, and because you as a dad deserve all the resources necessary to thrive through this challenging time. I encourage you to check out our website at thedivorcedadvocate.com, where there are resources that correspond to this episode, as well as free access to our membership community, where you will find live meetings, free workshops and courses, private discussion groups, and more. And now, on to this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in again this week. Today, we are going to be discussing how to have the conversation about divorce or ongoing conversations about divorce with your children. But before we jump into it, as always, let's welcome the new members of the Divorced Advocate community. Those are RJ, Mark, Nicholas, and Alan. And if you're not part of the community, check it out at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Get the divorce support that you need and deserve. We've got something for everybody there, from free to paid opportunities to get coaching. The divorce quiz is, as always, still up there as well. Check that out. It'll give you a great gauge as to where you are in your divorce compared to others that have gone through it, and give you some immediate results and feedback. So check that all out at thedivorcedadvocate.com. So like I said, in today's episode, we're going to dive into this sensitive but crucial conversation discussing divorce with your children. And we all know that divorce is challenging for everyone involved, but how you approach it with your kids can make a significant difference in their emotional well-being. And that's because children process divorce differently at each developmental stage, whether it's from toddlers to teens. So it's essential to tailor your conversation to their unique needs. And what we're going to do is we're going to explore how to explain divorce in a way that's age appropriate, how children in different age groups typically react, and how to provide support that fosters security and emotional health. So whether your child is in the early stages of development in elementary school or navigating adolescence, what you're going to find today is help providing you with practical guidance to help them through this transition. So let's start with the 0 to 5 years old, and let's talk first about key developmental issues during that time frame. And so we'll start with babies and toddlers, and then we'll talk about 3 to 4 year olds. The babies and toddlers, they obviously have a total dependence on you as parents, and they have no ability to understand the complex events or to anticipate future situations or understand their feelings. So it's going to be crucial that you are able to remain calm, relaxed, and positive, because what they're going to be picking up on unconsciously as a baby is your energy, and they will take their lead from you about how you are coping. So they're not going to cognitively feel anything, but they're energetically going to feel something from you. 3 to 4 year olds, they're starting to develop independence, but they're still highly dependent upon you. And they have a limited ability to understand cause and effect. They're still unable to think ahead, understand time, or understand what may happen in the future. They think that the world revolves around them, obviously, if you've been around any 3 or 4 year olds. And they're still highly egocentric and self-centered, which is absolutely perfectly normal. The lines between fantasy and reality is sometimes a bit fuzzy and unclear, and they will find what's happening oftentimes confusing. Have some ability to think about their feelings, but they have limited ability and vocabulary to talk about them. So they're able to think about things. I remember watching my daughters contemplating things, but not being able to express those verbally. So the long and short of that time frame is you need to keep things simple. So what should you watch out for? Watch out for signs of distress in preschool age children because it'll often include fear, anger, or emotional instability, which may express itself in clinginess, anxiety, maybe whining, or genital irritability. Preschool children may also take a temporary step backwards in their development. For example, they may become more babyish. Maybe they'll revert to some things like sucking their thumb, or the need to have a stuffed animal or a teddy bear more often, or little ones that may have been sleeping through the night might start waking up more often. This is because with their limited cognitive ability, 3 and 4-year-olds don't really understand the consequences and repercussions of what a divorce means in their lives. And another example of this is if daddy's the one who leaves the family home, they might think, quote unquote, daddy left me rather than quote unquote, daddy left mommy. So young children need to understand that the decision to live apart is an adult decision and not their fault. And while things will change, the security and love they feel by both parents will help them through the transition of change until things settle down. So your main things to be aware of at this age and stage is to be consistent and nurturing, and to give your child the security of hugs and love, which give your child a sense of stability and reassurance. So as much as possible, little ones need both parents to stick to their normal routines of meal times, play times, bath times, and bedtimes. As little kids like this age thrive on routine and consistency. Now, this is a really important one, guys, because this is something that dads in particular bring to the table in the relational dynamic of parenting. So make sure that when you do start your have your own environment and have your own household, that you do stick to the normal routines, normal meal routines, play routines, bath routines, bed routines, all of these. It creates a sense of security for the kiddos. This is, of course, important to all children, but especially after the divorce. And if things aren't going well at home, preteens and teenagers can escape by going to hang out with their friends, but babies, toddlers, and preschool age children can't. So that's why they don't have an escape. Creating that security of having regular routines for them helps them. Preschool children also need simple, concrete explanations. Like I said, keep things simple, stick to the basics, like which parents will be moving out, so be very clear. Where your child will live, be very clear. Who will look after them, and how often they'll see the other parents. So just keep it simple and keep it very clear. Be prepared for questions and provide short answers. Then wait to see if there are any more questions. Don't expect one conversation to do the job. Plan on several short talks, but again, keep it simple. So that's the 0 to 5 years old. Let's now talk about 6 to 11 years old and some of the key developmental issues going on with, first we'll talk 6 to 8-year-olds, and then we'll talk 9 to 11-year-olds. Some of the key developmental issues happening with 6 to 8-year-olds is that they have a growing ability to think and express their feelings. So now is a better time to start listening more than you talk. They'll have a broader, less egocentric view of what's going on around them, but they will still be limited in their understanding of complex circumstances such as what divorce is. So again, keep it relatively simple and straightforward. They will be developing more relationships outside of the family, including friends at school, people at school, and maybe clubs or sports that they're in. And they'll begin seeing the world as a bigger place than just the house or their home. So in this time, it's good to have informal little chats with them and read books and stories maybe around the topic of divorce that will prompt and help them to open up to have conversations if they want. Another thing that I found good during this time was to just check in with them often and ask them how they were feeling and just create that space for them. Some of the key developmental issues for 9 to 11-year-olds are that they are developing the ability to understand and think and talk about their feelings and their circumstances, particularly related to the changes during divorce. Their relationships outside the family are developing, and they understand more about what's happening between you and them and you and the world. And they tend to see things in black and white, and they may begin to blame one of you for the split, but they will take their lead from what you say. So be mindful and careful about what messages you are giving them. They're absolute little sponges and sometimes just mimicking what you're doing. So don't blame, don't judge, don't criticize the other parent, as it damages their confidence, self-esteem, and sense of who they are, as they are half of the mom and half of the dad. You've heard me say this before. Kids take their identity from both parents. So if you're making comments or disparaging the other parent, you're literally disparaging your child. So don't do it. Here's an example. 8-year-old Jenny asks her dad, "Why are you fighting? Is it because mommy deleted something from your iPad?" So that would be an example. Little Ross asks, "Are you splitting up because I was naughty at bedtime and kept coming into your bed?" So what this indicates is both children are trying to make sense of their circumstances, but they couldn't fully understand the whole picture. So just think of it as just as they have they have some blinders on them, right? Because they don't have a full understanding where those blinders can come off and the complete circumstances of the world and what is going on and the complexities of everything that's going on. So that's 6 to 11 years old, somewhat almost to that middle school time frame. And some things to watch out for. The school-age children will often show their distresses as fear, as anxiety, maybe some anger, maybe sadness. Some display very clear signs that they are missing their absent parents. So this would be a time that they might say, "I'm missing mommy" or "I'm missing daddy." Lots of children of all ages hold dreams and fantasies about their parents getting back together and wonder what they can do to make that happen. You've seen movies about this, right? But it is actually happening in their minds, whether or not they might share it with you. Children who think that they might be able to bring their parents back together or that they somehow contribute to the divorce will have trouble getting on with their own healing process. So they need to understand that they're not to blame and that they don't need to feel responsible for what's happening, and gently to understand that this is a permanent change. So your priorities during this time, again, provide stability as much as possible and routines, as they are still important. Kids at this upper end of this age range are more able to talk about what they're feeling. However, just because they can doesn't mean that they'll want to. So be mindful of talking when they want to talk, not when you want to talk. So again, you can check in, but you can also check in and you can notice that something might be coming up, or it just might come out of the blue when you have no idea and you might not be in the frame of mind to have that conversation. But stop what you're doing, stop peeling the potatoes, put down the newspaper, turn off the TV, and give your child the full attention, because it will be an opportunity when they start to open up to have that conversation. Approaching the topic indirectly can also help your child by doing something like reading a book around the subject, or by simply saying some quote, some children feel sad, afraid, or even angry when their parents divorce. And this is just a little bit less threatening than asking directly, are you feeling sad? So it's a kind of a roundabout way to open up the conversation. And then I really think the books about divorce can also help kids focus on their feelings. It's especially during this time frame, because a lot of kids don't think that they might be the only ones going through this. And I remember my daughters at one point having the realization after having more conversations with their friends, when they start talking about things at this age and relating to other people, like we said, that they came home, and my oldest came home and said, oh my gosh, Daddy, about half of all the other kids in my class's parents are divorced also. And so we then had the conversation around it, and it was a revelation for her that she was not the only one that had parents that were divorced. She was the only one that had gone through this challenging time, etc. So just be aware, be open to that. Just know that these conversations are going to pop up. They're trying to make heads and tails of their life and what's going on. So that's the 6 to 11-year-old age frame. Now let's talk to 12 to 14. We're gonna break down these next ones between 12 to 14 and then 15 to 18, kind of the teen years, which can be a little bit challenging, but also very different in the 12 to 14 from the 15 to 18. Key developmental issues in the 12 to 14-year-olds are that older children have a greater capacity to understand issues related to divorce, depending also on their maturity. They have the ability to take part in discussions and ask questions to increase their understanding. So it'll be less revelations and maybe more questions to help them to process this. They're also beginning to want. They're also beginning to want more independence, and naturally also start to question your parental authority. So if you add anger, confusion, and instability to the mix, you may find you have a volatile teen on your hands. So at this time, it's very crucial to maintain that level-headedness, which even in the best of circumstances with teenagers and this age group is very challenging, let alone adding the emotions of divorce going on. Also, at this age, relationships outside the family become increasingly important, and friends take on a much bigger importance in your child's life. Basically, your child's life during this time is mostly in relation to their friends and what's going on with their friends. So some things to watch out for. Irritability and anger are very common. This is very common also if it's directed at one or both parents, or maybe one of the parents who moved out. It can be hard to gauge how much of a young teen's moodiness, sulliness, or emotional changes are related to the divorce. So again, it's crucial to stay grounded, to stay calm, be open to conversations, and try not to become overwhelmed with guilt. I mean, that was a really big one for me, because this is the time where they may be acting out. They may be saying things to you that are not kind. And so that can lead to some big feelings around about being guilty about what's happening. So again, your priorities here are to keep the lines of communication open, build bridges, and keep those walls down between you. And that helps to decrease the chances that emotional problems will slip under the radar and then potentially escalate or manifest in other ways. Children in this age group can definitely be a bit harder to reach, and sometimes they act as if they don't want to be reached, or that they don't care. Just know that they do want to be reached, and they do care. It's just a delicate balance in how we get there. Most teens and preteens still need and crave a connection with you. In fact, they may well be testing you to see how much you love them, or how much they perceive that you love them. So reach out and don't back off. I think one of the things that parents often do is they just want to back off, and they just want to give space, and you hear give space, and they just let the kids then self-isolate. And I think that this is a mistake during this time. And not to say that it's not good to back off at times in order to give them time and space, but continue to reach out and continue to create that space and opportunity for them to come to you and have conversations is incredibly important. Okay, the last area and the last age group is 15 to 18-year-olds, and the key developmental issues here are conflict over what they want for themselves and others. They may feel torn between both parents or one or the other parent. They are likely to feel anger, and that's usually directed at one parent or the other for what may be described as messing up their life. They may feel ashamed or embarrassed about the divorce, and any public display of parental disagreement is uncomfortable for them. And they often worry about you and feel tremendously responsible for your well-being. And that's a critical one, that last one, to pay attention to. The main developmental task for teenagers is getting themselves ready to leave the home and live responsibly on their own. So while they may function and act like adults in many ways, they are not yet fully fledged, mature adults. They still have many developmental milestones to be met in their emotional and moral development. So be patient, as it may feel like one step forward and three step backs someday. They do not have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. Just remember that. It is biological. It may not have anything to do with you, just it is their development. Teenagers are often not able to look realistically at the future. Again, that's that prefrontal cortex and not being developed, and they still lack real world experience and may still believe that bad things only happen to other people. So what is it that they're experiencing during this divorce timeframe? They may be experiencing anxiety about leaving home. They may be experiencing and feeling responsible for the divorce. They may believe that the parent who has moved away no longer loves them. They may worry about their plans for the future and have concerns that there isn't enough money because of the separation to help them out. They may feel rejected or neglected or put on the sidelines. They may feel frightened or burdened by a parent's neediness or a parent's confusion or a parent's anger or distress. Again, that's why it's important to really maintain that level-headedness. They may resent you as parents for messing up their lives, and they're also likely to feel embarrassed or ashamed, like I said, about the divorce. So how can you recognize this during that time frame? One is they may be inclined to leave home earlier than planned. Another is talking of delaying their own plans so they can be at home to help out or look after one or another of the parents. Another is fear about leaving home because there will be no home to come back to. Another sign of distress is being extremely negative or critical of one or both of the parents. Another is increased aggression. You definitely need to watch out for signs of alcohol or drug abuse, suspension from school, getting into fights, running away from home, sudden drop in school performance, withdrawal from activities and friends, self-injuring, or getting into trouble with the law, God forbid. So during this difficult and challenging time, and as you can see, there's the 15 to 18-year-old and the preteen into teens is probably the most complex one in the complex time. And that's why we're talking about so much of this and so many of the different, the developmental issues and the the signs of what they're experiencing, and their signs of distress. And now let's talk about what you can do to help them. The first is be a positive model for your children, how to take care of yourself and deal with your feelings. Like I said, they're getting ready to leave the home. So if you are modeling positive behavior and how you're getting through this situation and these challenges in a healthy and functional way, you're going to help them to see how to do that, because they will very soon be experiencing some of these difficult challenges. Definitely offer love, encouragement, and support no differently than you would with the 0 through 5-year-olds. Now, it might show up in a different way. They might not want to be cuddled, etc., but offer that love, encouragement, and support. Remember, this one is huge, huge too, because I see this maybe not happening as much with fathers as much as mothers. But remember to stay in the role of parents, even when it may be tempting to be a friend to your teen. Your kids have many friends, but they only need 2 parents, and your child still needs you to be their parents. So state your expectations clearly and set consistent boundaries and have consequences if they cross them. Encourage your teenager to continue having plans for their life. Don't encourage or allow them to postpone their plans because of you or what's happened because of the divorce. This is another good one that's important. Be discreet about your sexual activities. It's important to be the kind of role model that teaches your kids about responsible sexual behavior. Give your teen your verbal and let me just add to that a little bit. It is a good time, and it's very important to still be having that communication with them about sex. So don't ignore it. While I say be discreet about what your activities are, it doesn't mean not talking to them about sex or sexuality or their sexuality, etc. So still be open and have those conversations. Give your teen your verbal and emotional permission to know and love their other parents. Again, encourage them to spend time with their other parents. And you may have split up, but the family relationships are forever. So they may be going off to school or somewhere else, and you still want to encourage that relationship with both parents. What else you can do to help is tell your teenager often that you love them, and you can do things like give them a hug if they'll let you, ruffle their hair, show them some affection. They may pretend to not like it, but physical love is important. It's important to all of us. We all need to have that sense and feeling of being loved and having that physical touch. And so no matter how old your teenager is, they will need that as well. Allow your teenager to have an opinion about the co-parenting timetable and be prepared to make some changes, potentially in the schedule as your child becomes older and more independent. This is especially relevant if you've had a parenting plan in place for several years. Remember, things change, but I will also add that your involvement in their life is crucial to their adult development. So oftentimes what will happen is they're going to want to go the path of least resistance, or where things might be the easiest for them. So don't kowtow to that if it means that you're not getting enough time or parenting time with them to be able to share and to model behavior and to have an environment that they get to see and experience as healthy and positive. Don't take it personally if your teen chooses to spend more time with their other parents. In this developmental stage, it isn't unusual for kids to want to spend more time with their same-sex parents. Again, this, though, does not mean that it should be all or nothing, or that it should be really extremely uneven. If you are the parent who has moved out of the house, remain involved as a parent. Make efforts to stay in touch with your teen through phone calls, emails, attending their assorted functions, and getting together for meals. So just stay engaged. It's an incredibly difficult and challenging time. But again, dads, stay engaged with the teens, no matter how difficult or how hard it is, whatever the circumstances are. It is in the best of circumstances challenging with teens. It is ultra challenging when you're going through divorce or post-divorce with them as well. So keep in mind that the signs of distress listed for each one of these developmental stages are simply based on what the research says about the average child of each particular age. Your child may experience your divorce quite differently, and as always, rely on what you know to be true for your child and about your child, and use this information and what we've talked about as these developmental ages as a guide, as you know your child better than anybody else does. And then also, lastly, keep in mind that it's very likely that your child will have questions about and reactions to your divorce with each developmental stage that they enter. When they're moving from one stage to the next, it often will bring different types of questions or wanting to expand upon things or learn more. That means you're probably going to have many conversations with your child about your divorce over the course of your child's life. My daughters were very young when we got divorced. I can attest to this 100%, that our conversations have evolved over time. Now that they're teens, we still do have conversations about divorce, but obviously they have evolved to talk about different things and focus more about relationships and actually how to have healthy relationships in the future, because that is a good model for them to be able to discuss unhealthy relational dynamics and how to look out for those in their existing dating relationships and their future relationships. So just know that it's an ongoing thing. It's a work in progress. Don't feel like you are ever going to make a mistake. As long as you are there, you are present, you are open to having those conversations with them. You can't make you can make mistakes, but it's okay. You're not going to be perfect in those conversations, but just being there, communicating with them, being positive, loving them, lifting them up, listening to them at the proper stage is all important stuff. So, gentlemen, this is it's a difficult and challenging one to deal with. I respect that, and I appreciate that you've listened. I hope that you found some value in this. If you have, please share it far and wide on social media. Give us a star rating. Give us some comments. Share it with another divorced dad as well. Thank you so much for listening this week. I pray that you have a great week. God bless. To hear the rest of this episode and access the corresponding resources, visit thedivorcedadvocate.com and become a member of our community. It's free to join and will provide you with the resources you deserve as a divorced or divorcing dad. Thank you for listening. God bless, and I'll talk with you next week.